So earlier this week, as I said, I believe in my car talk video, I finally finished watching Monogatari. And it's something I found myself absolutely loving. And I just kind of wanted to take some time and give my thoughts on it, kind of give, I guess, some kind of a review. So I should start at the beginning. What exactly is it? Monogatari is in total 100 episodes plus 3 films. That is an adaptation of a light novel series. I'm not sure if the light novel series has ended. I think it has, because I believe that even after, because the main story has concluded in the anime, but I think there's just other stuff that kept coming out. I don't know if this is all this really continues the story, and if you love the series, you gotta read it, you gotta hope it gets adapted, or if it's like, no, this is just a bunch of extra side content that's, I imagine, would still be a lot of fun. I'm not super sure, but I feel like if you just watch the show and then the movies, you are going to get a full story. When it comes to the genre, Monogatari, it's kind of just whatever it feels like at any given time, but what it really feels like to me is a combination of like a monster of the week, although it's generally an arc to arc, so it's almost more like the monster of the month, a rom-com, and a drama. And I say that because whatever supernatural entity you're dealing with, which they refer to them as aberrations, they refer to them as oddities, so I might use either of those terms as we go on. But whatever oddity that you are dealing with is something that is heavily related to a specific character's mental state or emotional state. Every now and then, it's not. It might just be an oddity, some kind of thing that you're dealing with. I think the darkness, which I might talk about that a little later, is an example of that. Like, it has a specific purpose. You know why it's there. It's not really directly tied to, oh man, like this really reveals a lot about this particular character. But most of the time it does. And by learning more about this oddity, you learn like a lot more about that person, about their worldview, just kind of their mental or emotional state at that slice of the story. You might just learn about their backstory. And I tended to really, really, really enjoy that. And all of this stuff is supported by really good voice acting, an excellent soundtrack, and one of my favorite visual styles. It is I think I talk about the visuals in a little bit, so I'll kind of hold off on that. Now, it's very clear, as I've said, and you can probably maybe tell a bit, I really liked the show. I had an absolute blast watching it. I think I watched like 50 episodes in like 6 days or something. Like, it got to a point where I was like, I need to get this done before Pokemon. Let me just consume. Well, it was part of, I think it really came down to 3 things. 1, I need to get this done before Pokemon, so let's go. 2, because of how it's neatly divided into arcs, the show is very, very bingeable. And 3, I was having so much fun watching it, it made it really hard to put down. But with all that being said, all of my genuine love for the show, I completely understand why someone would get into it, because I really don't think it's for everybody. Number 1, the cinematography, the visual style that I love, I admit is really weird. There's a lot of close-ups, which that's not inherently a weird thing, but a lot of it is just, here's a close-up of somebody, and then here's a close-up of them from like this angle. I'm trying to get this is the kind of shot you would just see in Monogatari, like mid-conversation. It would just kind of like start from here, and then get like really close here, and then next thing you know, you're like down here, and you're like, yeah, that's normal. That's just a normal set of stills while someone is just talking. And I feel like it's something you either get into and you just kind of have fun with it. You're like, what? Why? I don't get it. Why are you doing this? Because at first I was like, all right, now I see where Madoka got it from. And it's not my favorite thing in Madoka. I don't think it's awful. I absolutely love basically everything in the show. But like, this is okay, I guess. Okay, this is where I got it from. It's the same director. And then by the time the show was over, I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally into this shit now. It's so good. On top of that, You know how, like, when you watch the anime of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, there's times where the colors will just change completely? Monogatari does that too. And it's something I also really enjoy, especially when stuff will just turn red. Now, there's times when they'll just have, like, a screen that's just black, and it'll say, like, black screen or red screen, which, remember Jose was telling me, because I have two friends that, like, really got me into the show, and one was like, yeah, I feel like this is always just kind of, like, they're kind of like emotional breaks, and not always like, whoa, really emotional stuff just happened, that's gonna have a blank screen, but it's like, if it's black, it's usually, this is a more low-key, kind of chill moment, and then when it's red, it's like, okay, like, stuff is getting more intense, which, I think there were times when I was like, I don't know, we're in kind of an intense scene, but it's still black, or it's like, things are still kind of normal, but it's going red. There might have been a few times. I think it was just Monogatari being Monogatari. It's just kind of weird to be weird, and again, you either get into it or you don't, but I eventually was like, yeah, this is fine. But there are times when, like, the whole screen, like, the color, I don't mean like that, but everything on screen will just have a different tint to it. And yeah, a lot of the times when it would just go red, I really like, I think that was usually with Shinobu doing stuff, because I think the scene where Shinobu was talking to herself in the, I think it's a time travel arc. I think that's Mayoi Shengshi. I don't actually know how to pronounce that word, but it's the Kabuki Monogatari arc. That, I think, is one of those times where all goes red. It's also during the Medusa arc. I think there's like a scene or two where the whole thing is just red. And I'm like, this looks so pretty. Oh, this is so cool. And then on top of that, you also have scenes where the background is not literal. I can think of a couple examples. In Hana Monogatari, which is Suruga Devil, when Kambaru and Ruka are having a conversation on a basketball court, there's just basketballs floating all around them like little planets. And there's not actually basketballs floating around them. It's just what's going on. Because they're on a basketball court, they both play basketball. It's something important to them. And I think like Ruka's just like touching a ball, then it goes like flying and hits another ball. Stuff like that. How when you're in Kambaru's room, it's just books everywhere. It's like, I don't think that, I mean, that's the thing, she likes to read. I don't think that's literal, that's all she has in her room, or that she has that many. I know during the Medusa arc, when Sengoku is like looking at other people, they're not actually people. From what I remember, they're like these hazy white outlines with, I don't remember what it was on the face. It was like some kind of brighter color, but I don't remember actually seeing like eyes. I think it was just like a question mark. I might be making that part up, but I remember it's like, these aren't actually people, because she is so unconcerned about who they are. They don't matter. And I really got into that. I can understand why people don't. It's weird. It kind of takes some getting used to, but I got used to it and I ended up really liking it. Another thing I could see people not getting into is the fact that this is a non-linear story. I think it's like the first half of season 3 takes place... Wait, hold up. I'm trying to remember this. Okay, so the first 3 arcs of season 3 happen after the first arc of season 2, but then the second half of the first half of season 3 takes place during the first arc of season 2. In season 2, there is an arc. It's like there's the Medusa arc, which is like really crazy. There's Koi Monogatari, which takes place right after. But in the middle of them, you're supposed to watch Hana Monogatari, which takes place after both of those. And after the second half of season 3, which takes no, wait. Yes, Hana takes place after the second half of season 3, because that happens right after Koi. Because what the fuck is I can't say what the fuck is a coherent timeline. Because when you watch it, it becomes very clear, oh, this takes place here, this takes place here. And by the end, you actually have a really big completed puzzle. The timeline is coherent. But when you are watching it in the intended order, it does get really fuzzy. And I normally really don't care for nonlinear storytelling, because I'm just like, why? Why are you doing this? Like, oh, Clay's here. Sorry, but I'm like, I prefer, like, if you're going to tell a story, just tell the story. If you're resorting to telling your story with gimmicks like nonlinearity, that's generally a sign that the story just wasn't that good, because you have to do weird stuff to get me engaged rather than just telling an engaging story. Now, that doesn't apply all the time. I love Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite movies of all time. It's non-linear, and I still really get into it. This, to me, is another exception that proves the rule, because I got really into it. And I think it is because arcs I can't really say they can be watched by themselves, because there are a lot of callbacks to other stuff that has happened, whether you have seen that thing that has happened yet or not. But they're self-contained enough that I feel like as long as you've seen Bake Monogatari and all the arcs in there, because that is just the groundwork of the series, you're generally good to kind of watch things. So, weirdly enough, it didn't bother me. I would just kind of like watch an arc and go, okay, so where the hell does this one happen? Okay, they just mentioned this event, which means it's after this, but before this, way before this, and usually I don't care for that, but honestly here, I think I was just having so much fun with the show. I was having a lot of fun trying to complete the puzzle as well. Let's see. Okay, so the next thing that I could see people not getting into, which wasn't a problem for me, is that the show is just people standing around and talking. There is very little fighting, and at times, especially in Bake, there can be very little animation. There's times where you're just kind of watching a slideshow, and if you don't get into the conversations, you're not going to have a good time. But I feel like the vast majority of conversations in this show are either really entertaining, because I think these people are fun, and I actually like listening, kind of like some of their worldviews, the way they talk to each other. Or, well, I don't know if I just said interesting or entertaining, but they're either interesting or entertaining to me. And because of that, I don't have a problem with it. It's like, yeah, I can see people saying, I want more action. I want to see more, like, stuff happening. I don't want to watch a, 6-minute scene of two people discussing how traffic lights work, which is a real scene, by the way. I remember that. There's shit like that. If you don't like people just sitting, walking, and talking, this is not the show for you, 100%. And I totally get it. But if that's not something that bothers you, so long as the conversations are fun or engaging, I think you're in good hands here. The last thing that I could see people not getting into the show for is the fact that, as Jose explained it to me when he was trying to get me into it, trying to sell me on, he's like, the show is really good. Really, really, absolutely love it. It is way too horny. And yeah, it is. There's a lot of shots of just cleavage, of underwear, of people talking about other people's bodies. I guess that's kind of a good segue into me talking about my problems with the show, because that is my problem with the show. I'll talk in a bit about the things I really like, which I kind of already have, but I'll just kind of lay them out a little bit more. My one real problem is it's way too horny, and a lot of the people it's horny toward at times are very young, or at least physically appear very young. However, though, if I'm being perfectly honest, those scenes don't bother me as much as I thought they would. Certainly not as much as they did in Mushoku Tensei. Because I still 100% agree with what I said a few months ago when I tried to watch it. I was like, this show has become so disgusting. Excuse me. Just so disgusting and repulsive. I cannot justify my continuing to watch it. Monogatari definitely has moments where I'm like, this is getting creepy. But it never reaches that point. And for me, these would be the reasons why. One, it is cartoony as hell, even when it is being really horny. At worst, it feels like a Pepe Le Pew, like a Pepe Le Pew cartoon. Here's a scene I can think of. So Araragi has this one friend named Hachikuri. And whenever he sees her, he kind of has this mental monologue of, I see her, and she's a really good friend of mine. And whenever I see her, I'll run up to her, grab her and like throw her in the air and talk about how much I love her body and all that stuff. And she's a 5th grader, so I think she's like 10, he's like 18. She's a ghost. Technically she's 21, but she looks like she is a 10-year-old 100%. And so when he's like perving on her, I'm like, oh, we have to do this. But like, there's literally a scene where he hasn't seen her in like several months because plot shit has happened. And when he sees her, he's like, I haven't seen her. I don't have to do this. I should treat this as a really emotional moment. You're right, me. Let's not do this. Let's treat this as a very emotional moment. So then he grabs himself by his like alfalfa hair, tugs on it, rockets appear like on his ass, shoot him into the sky, into the stratosphere. He goes past the planet and then dive bombs onto her. We're like, yeah, chikuni! And then he starts, grabbing her and throwing her in the air and shit. I'm like, I can't be mad at this because this is so cartoony and over the top. It loops back around to being funny. And then right after, he's like, it gets creepy again. And I won't lie, because those moments still happen. Like, it kind of goes back to being creepy before the scene is done. But even still, I was still laughing. And I kind of hate that I was, but it was still funny. The other, I guess the next thing that makes me not bothered as much is when you get those kinds of moments, I don't think they're genuine. For example, I feel like when Araragi does that with Hachikuji, it is not, I am genuinely attracted to this person and her very young, underdeveloped body. To me, it feels like this is just a bit that they're both in on and they both enjoy, because there's actually a couple times where she does it to him. And it's a weird bit, but it's like, well, they're both cool with it, and I don't think he's actually enjoying it, because there is a time travel arc where they actually see her all grown up. And when he sees her, he does not go, man, she's all grown up. You got really hot. Or, oh, this is what you look like grown up. Man, I prefer you as a kid. It's played completely straight, where he's just happy to see her like that. And this is what you could have been. This is what could have happened if you didn't die young and become a ghost. I'm so happy to see a world like this where you got to grow up. There's nothing romantic or sexual about it. With his sisters, because if there's one thing you might know about Monogatari, it's the freaking toothbrush scene, which again, so cartoony and over the top, it's actually funny. But with his sisters, do I actually feel like he is sexually attracted and aroused by his sisters? No. Do I feel like the same for them? Are they actually attracted to him? No. I think they're very, very comfortable around each other to, again, kind of a creepy, unsettling degree, but the fact that I don't think any of that is genuine romantic or sexual attraction makes it not as bad. There's scenes where, Kanbaru is always just talking about how she just wants to bang him. And I'm pretty sure 90% of that is not true because she is a lesbian. And you never see Araragi actually get when you keep talking like that, that's actually really turning me on. It's really getting ready to go. He's just no, shut up. Stop. Even though you have someone offering, even though it's probably a joke, he doesn't actually seem like he gets excited about it. When you have this scene in the first Sengoku arc when she's being constricted by the snakes, and she has to, strip down, and he looks at her, he's not man, I get to see this, 14-year-old, she's, so hot, look at her body. He's just kind of oh, this is what happened to you. Shit. I think there was, a tiny little bit because, she was wearing bloomers, and he's oh, I think I have a fetish for this. But, aside from that part, he wasn't, getting off on it. And I think even I think they bring up, I think it was Sengoku asked him, it's hey, do you like looking at me like this? No. Not at all. Why would I? Whatever. And Kanbaru's hey, no, you piece of shit. You can't just tell a girl you're not attracted to her. You did that wrong. Tell her you're attracted to her. Oh, my bad. Yeah, you're really cute. I like looking at you. And then she gets really embarrassed. Copper's like, what's wrong with you? You can't just look at a girl and tell her you're attracted to her. Like, what do you mean? You just told me to do that. But it is not, his attraction to her is not actually genuine. I feel like there is two people in the series he is genuinely attracted to. Senjo Gahara, his girlfriend, and Hanakawa, his other really good friend. And they are both of his age. So, and again, I feel like with Hanakawa, it only really gets uncomfortable in Kizu, because, oh man, that scene in the storage closet was wild. Aside from that, though, I'm like, no, it's not genuine, so it doesn't really bother me, but it's still weird and creepy, but it's not nearly as creepy. I guess kind of comparing it to Mushoku Tensei real quick, the fact that Araragi is perving on people that are his age. Because, like I just said, Senjo Gahara, his age, Hanakawa, his age, everyone else, since it's not genuine, it doesn't bother me as much. I know I'm really repeating myself, I'm sorry. But Rudius was a fucking 40-year-old. You could say, like, well, he's physically, like, 7. Like, okay, well, he's 7. He doesn't actually have hormones. Araragi does. This is a dude who is, like, 18. So he is mentally in a mode where he is horny all the time, and it's still really only directed to people his age. Rudius is mentally 40 by the time the series, like, is starting. Like, I think he's 35 at the very start, and then after his first few years, he's like, man, I'm like a 40-year-old man. Hey, look at this sleeping 9-year-old. I'm gonna grope her boob because I don't like her. Oh man, you've got, like, really good potential. I can't wait to see you grow up. You know, and I'm gonna steal your panties too because you're sleeping. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, this dude, if he did the toothbrush scene, I swear, like, 100%, he would be getting off on it he would do it knowing, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna see her, like, licking that toothbrush, and oh, it's gonna be so good. And the entire time, just going like, oh yeah, you dirty girl, let me get those teeth, yeah. And then by the time he's done, it would probably be like, oh man, look at this toothbrush. Her saliva is still on it. Oh, I can't wash this. I have to keep this as a holy relic. Like, that's what would fucking happen. Araragi's a creeper, don't get me wrong, but he's not that bad. And I mean, all of these are really important, but possibly the thing that really helps it along is Araragi is a good person. And it's not like, you know, deep down, he's a good guy. It's not even that far deep. So many times you see this man just, I am going to help people because that is who I am. Even at the expense of my own time, the expense of my own body, the expense of whatever resources I have, because I just want to help people. And there's a scene where Senjo Gahara is like, look, dude, you are a you're quasi-vampire. Like, you can regenerate, you can heal. If you do the shit you do, because of that, because you know I have a body that can take it, yeah, that'd be completely fine. I would not be mad at you for doing this because it's more of a strategy. But I know 100% you would still do this if you didn't have this ability. You would be throwing yourself into danger on other people's behalf with no regard for yourself, even if you didn't have a failsafe. And it makes me so mad because I love you so much and I don't want to see you get hurt and you do this to yourself. But I also know I wouldn't love you nearly as much if you didn't have that heart for people. So just, I just need to vent and call you an idiot. But you're my idiot, and never change, but please don't do this shit again. And, like, I love that. I love that this is a good person who's just kind of horny because he's a teenager. Rudius is, like, even when he's being a good person, it always feels like there's an asterisk. Like, oh, look, dad cheated with the maid, so mom is going to kick the maid out. I need to save the maid. Okay, that's a good thing. So I'm going to talk about how dad raped her even though he didn't. Completely throw dad under the bus because, well, he cheated, he's an asshole, let's just make it worse. I I get your good intentions, but what? That's fucked, dude. Here's again the other scene where he's like, hey, I want to go to magic school and I want to take my friend with me so the two of us can like stay together, get strong together, be childhood friends and whatever the hell. That's sweet. I like that. But like 5 minutes before, your 40-year-old mental self was like, now that I know she's a girl and she's pretty cute, she's gonna get really cute when she grows up. And, oh man, I can like turn her and groom her into my perfect woman. Oh, I can't wait. While he's like masturbating and he's physically 7. Like, no, you can't talk about wanting to groom this girl into your perfect woman. And then be like, yeah, it's a really noble thing that I want to work hard and make sure she and I go to the same school. No, because of course you do. Because you, like, want her all to yourself so you can make her your... you're just gross. Everything about you is gross. Araragi has gross parts of him. But when he is being a good person, it's because he's genuinely a good person, looking to get nothing out of it and not screw over other people. I really like his character, all things considered. So even the worst element of the show to me, and I guess by far the worst thing in the show, is not that bad, because there's a lot of mitigating factors. So, the good shit. I love the visual flair of this show that I talked about. I don't even know why. It was just, at some point, it clicked. So whenever I saw weird backgrounds or the weird angles and close-ups, I got into it. I was like, oh yeah, I love this shit. This is great. I love how every arc has a different opening, and it is sung by the main focus of the arc. It's like, these are good songs. Like, just some of my favorites off the top of my head. Renai Circulation, Muso Express, Platinum Disco, Dark Cherry Mystery. Which, that one, I feel like I like the song, I like the visuals more than I like the song. That's all I'm really thinking of. Oh, and I like both of Kambaru's. I don't remember what either of them are called, but both Sudoga Monkey and Sudoga Devil I thought were absolute bangers. I really like the visuals of Koi's with like Kaiki and Senjo Kohara, how it just like looked like an old 90s anime. Like, I liked the song and it was a duet. The visuals were so good. I love the cast. And I think it is because it is so character-focused, like each arc is a character study. I got to really like these people and find them really, really interesting. And I think by the end, there really wasn't a major character I disliked. Like, I did not care for Sengoku in her first arc. I didn't hate her. I was like, she's okay. Medusa arc happens like, this girl is fascinating. I really like her. Ononoki, I'm like, alright, her first time when she shows some Nisa, I'm like, alright, she's fine, I guess. By the end, like, this is such a fun character. She's great. Hachikuji, as it goes on, I'm like, she has some really good arcs. Araragi, I was like, yeah, he's just... I'm not super feeling him. And, like, by the end of Bake, I was like, I really like this kid. He's a good dude. Freaking Kaiki, man. Kaiki first shows up, you're like, what an asshole. What a piece of shit. By the end of Koi, you're like, man, he might be the best character in the show. And the scene of him running and just casually outrunning Kambaru, I think is the funniest scene in the whole show. Also, the scene with him and Hitagi when they're throwing coffee and orange juice on each other. Comedy gold, man. I love the supernatural elements of the show because they feel so clever. Not just in the way there, it's like, oh yeah, this is something that's really intrinsically connected to this character. A lot of it feels like I'd like it more if I understood Japanese, because a lot of it were based on, like, puns and whatnot. But when they're explained, I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. Oh, that's so clever. I love this. And yeah, like, I surprisingly really did not mind that it was a non-linear story, because I love just being able to put the puzzle together. So, so with all that said, now I just kind of want to go ahead and list what my top arcs are, and then give my final conclusion of the show's quality as a whole, which, as you can tell, is overwhelmingly positive. So I'm going to list my top 13. I'm picking that for two reasons. One, there's a lot of arcs I really, really like, and I think I was saying this in the Card Talk video, like, a top 10 would not quite do it justice, and it's my list. If I want to put more on there, I can. If I didn't feel like there were 10 I absolutely loved, then I would make it a shorter list too. And I think I had also said 13 is a very occulty kind of number, and this is a series that deals with a lot of supernatural stuff, oddities, aberrations, so it feels kind of fitting. I'm not really going to go into why I liked these arcs in particular, because Clay is going to be watching the show really soon, and I'm super excited for him to do so. So I don't want to actually spoil anything for him. So for once, it'll be a video that's pretty light on spoilers. So moving from 13 to number 1. 13 is Mayoi Hell. 12 is a tie between Sodachi Riddle and Sodachi Lost. Because to me, they're trying to say essentially effectively at the same time. They're basically one arc anyways. It's just split up into two. They're back-to-back chronologically, back-to-back in actually show order. So they're essentially one arc. Number 11. Let me turn the page, but I believe I know what it is. Yep, it's Tsubasa Tiger. 10 is Koyomi Reverse. 9 is Suruga Monkey. 8 is Shinobu Time. 7 is Suruga Devil. 6 is Ogi Formula. I know it's a really short arc, but this one I will go ahead and at least say has one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. Because it's just a cinematography thing, but Ogi and Araragi are having a conversation in this, like, cursed room. And there's this part I remember where she's sitting on the desk behind him, but she's laying down so that, like, she's actually, her head is on his desk. And then I remember she just started, like, slithering her body around him. And I was like, whoa, this is peak Monogatari. Like, in terms of, like, I think peak Monogatari in terms of humor, to me, like I said, it's Kaiki outrunning Kambu like she's nothing. In terms of weird visuals, it is that scene. I absolutely love it. It is the thing I think of, like, every time. And then, of course, if you're talking about peak Monogatari horniness, I would not say the toothbrush scene. I would say the storage house scene in Kizu. Like, no question, that one's way worse. I remember I was telling that to a friend. He's like, it's way worse. He's like, or better. I'm like, worse. But I get what you're going for. But 6, Ogi Formula. And then my top 5... Mayoi Jingshi, again, I don't really know how to pronounce it, but that's the time travel one. Weird that Shinobu Time, where she time travels, is not actually the arc that's about time travel. I was like, that's okay, but okay. 4 is Sengoku Medusa. 3 is Kizu. I don't know what the actual arc is called there. At each movie, it was, I don't remember exactly what they were called, but the translations, I believe it's Iron-Blooded, Cold-Blooded, Hot-Blooded, which I know are terms that are used to describe Shinobu, or at that point, what is it? Kiss Shot, Acerola, Orion, Heart Underblade, her full vampire name, but it's Shinobu for short. But number 3 would be Kizu. Number 2, so this was really, really close. I'm still kind of going back and forth between these. I think this is my number 2 and number 1, but on a different day, I could maybe be convinced otherwise. Number 2 is Ogi Dark, and number 1 is Hitagi End. Which, despite the title, it's Senjo Gahara's a major character in it, but it's the Kaiki arc. Everyone who sees it, yeah, this is his arc. This is why Kaiki is now best girl, because of this shit right here. It's phenomenal. So with all that being said, all of my gushing, like I was talking about Cold Steel 2, which I have the next one written. I think I said that as well in the Car Talk video. Next one is written. I'll try to see if because I know I'm off tomorrow. I'll see if I can record it tomorrow, but it's pretty long. I really just want to play Pokemon, so we'll see. But I had to talk about Monogatari. Like, I have so much passion about this show because I just finished it and loved it. If I had to give it a letter grade, so like no real scoring, letter grade is basically just my vibe, which obviously the worst thing you could get there would be an F. Like, to me, it's an S through F rating. And an S is like, to me, this is the creme de la creme. I would watch this, like, anytime. This is one of the best things I have ever seen for, like, whatever reason. Holy crap. A is, like, this is absolute quality. Just it's not quite S. There's maybe something that it's missing, but it's basically a 10 out of 10. B, really good shit. Could be better. C, it's mid. D, this is not good. And F, this is awful. I probably dropped it. I might do, like, incompletes for something like that. Well, I think it would depend on why. Like, Mushko Tensei I dropped, but it wasn't because, like, I just wasn't getting into it. It's like, no, I'm disgusted by this. This is an F. I will do that. Now remembering Animal House, Daniel Simpson Day has no grade point average. His classes are incomplete. And Pluto Blutowski, 0.0. Anyways, point. Monogatari is an S tier show. Like, I will be completely honest about that. Even with... I think if it wasn't for all those mitigating factors I mentioned with the horniness, that's the kind of thing that would move it from an S, but it would still be an A because everything else is so good, even if there's that one area that bugs me. But there's so many things that make that one element not nearly as bad as it would be in other shows. So I can't really, in good faith, knock it down that far of a peg. So it's still an S tier if I had to give it a number rating. Now, obviously, when I do games, I can do it out of 15. 5 for presentation, 5 for the narrative, 5 for the gameplay. This is a show. There's no gameplay. So ignore that. It is now a score out of 10. Presentation is a 6. This is one of those where I would break my scoring system for, because it's... Again, for people who are unaware of how I do it, I'm more of a... I will take points away rather than award points. You start with a perfect score, and as problems arise, it goes down. But if I have no points to take away, and I'm still feeling like the score is not enough because this element was so good, I will add points and break the scale. To me, I have nothing to take away here. Voice acting, phenomenal. The character designs, I really like that. I feel like these characters all look very distinct from each other, and I can pick them out of a lineup. Maybe not by their silhouette, but yeah, if they're all standing next to each other, I'm like, that's you, that's you, that's you. That's good shit. I do remember the first time I saw Kaiki, I texted one of my friends. I was like, dude, he looks like the love child between Ryuk and the Count. And he just sends me back, you're not wrong. Like, that's peak design. You can't convince me otherwise. But voice acting, I think I already said that, was really good. The music, really good. The cinematography, the weird-ass angles, so good. The opening, I don't love all the openings. I won't lie. But I still really like that there's so many and how they all really fit the arc and or the individual. It's so good. That's a 6 out of 5. I don't give a shit. As for the narrative, it's a toss-up if it's a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5. A 4.5 out of 5, because I normally deal in half points. And it is just, do I take that half point off for the horniness? Because it's mitigated a lot, but there's times where it will still just kind of bother me a bit. And I feel like, if I'm being completely honest, doesn't bother me as much as it should, as it normally would. But it still kind of does, and I feel like I am being disingenuous if I don't take that point off. So I would take a half point off, because if there wasn't for the mitigating factors, it would definitely be more. See, Mushko Tensei. I have to, like, because I kept watching this show and thinking, that thing was deplorable and I hated it. Why does this one not bother me so much? Okay, these reasons are why, and they make a lot of sense. That's why I have to keep bringing up Mushko Tensei, as much as I don't want to, but I also want to, because I like how much I hate it. I just, like, ugh. That's a 4.5 out of 5. So, Monogatari in total to me is it's a final score of 10.5 out of 10. S tier shit. Absolutely love it. It's fantastic. It's not for everyone. And like I said, I had a whole section about it. I completely understand why some people would not get into it. I feel like there's a lot of things that, yeah, this is not for a lot of people. This part is not for a lot of people. But those elements, aside from the horniness, didn't bother me. And that one just didn't bother me as much. So, absolutely fantastic. I don't really know if I have anything else. I guess the only other thing I want to say is, because I know Madoka is also directed by the same guy. Can't remember his name. I think it's like Akiyuki something with an S. I want to say Shinobu, but I think that's just because there's a character named Shinobu in Monogatari. Madoka would just be a 12 out of 12. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that. I will shatter my scale for my favorite show. I don't know what other anime I would want to talk about. Love's tempting. Not as an anime. I would talk about the VN. And that's is that a game? I don't know. Because there's not really gameplay. So I think I would just take that out and talk about the presentation and the narrative. And Boy, that narrative would get a really high score, man. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm talking about Monogatari, and I have done that. It's good. Absolutely love it. Can't wait for Clay to watch it. If y'all have seen it, let me know what you think of it. Like, what are some of your favorite arcs in the show? I feel like my number one is a lot of people's number one. Just from people I have talked to, it seems like that is generally the consensus favorite. But I am curious, are there other, like, really popular ones that I left off or I had really low? Are some of the ones that I had in kind of like my top 10-ish or a little higher on the list, do you think they're maybe a little too high? Curious to know. But that is all I have for this one. And like I said, hopefully I can do the next Trails one tomorrow. Until then, bye.